All right, so we are live, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. For those joining us for the first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And of course, there are no classrooms really happening right now. So thank you to all our YouTube viewers for tuning in all across Canada, the US, and beyond. We really appreciate you being here as we continue to bring great digital education to kids around the world. So we are on our second of many SciComm story time. So if you tuned in yesterday, Emily Calandrelli on Exploration Outer Space, she did a fantastic presentation, and she is lined up like the ultimate rock star lineup of fantastic science communicators around the world. So every day at 2 Eastern or 11 Pacific, you will have someone new joining live on this channel. So we appreciate you being here and hope you'll tune in for many more to come. So today we are joined live in beautiful Los Angeles by Trace Dominguez. So he is a curiosity explorer. Now, what does that mean? It means that he finds things that are super fascinating to him and finds as many ways as possible of sharing them all with you. So that means he's a host, a science communicator, a producer, podcaster, and more. He is the host of Stargazers, a PBS naked eye astronomy show. He's the creator of Uno Dos of Trace. He's doing all sorts of stuff. That's what LA is all about. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining us today, Trace, and take us away.
Hello, everyone. I am Trace Dominguez, as was just mentioned by Jesse. Thanks, man. That was great. I make science content all day, every day. But I'm not just a science nerd. I'm a nerd about all sorts of things. So before we get into my little presentation I put together, I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm originally from Michigan, and I spent a lot of my youth trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to do with myself. I was always jealous of people who knew what they wanted to be when they grew up. I was jealous of people like that because I didn't know. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I wanted to be, for a while, I wanted to be a chemistry teacher. For a while, I wanted to be a psychologist. For a while, I wanted to work with animals. For a while, I wanted to, I wanted to try all these different things. And it doesn't always seem like that is a viable path, but it totally is, because that's what I ended up doing, which we'll talk more about in a minute. But in the end, I ended up going to university at Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Kalamazoo is a real place. And then after that, I lived abroad for a while, came back and went to graduate school at American University in DC, and I got a degree in communication. And then I got an internship, and that internship changed my whole life. I ended up working at the Discovery Channel, which is based in the DC area, or used to be. And when I worked there, I met all of these really excited, passionate people who were making things every single day that were teaching people about stuff, whatever it was that they were excited about, or they would get themselves excited about all sorts of things. And that's essentially what I do now too, because I was like, I love all these people. All these people are teaching people things every day, and they get to learn new stuff every day. And because I didn't know what I wanted to be, I ended up having to learn little pieces of all these different jobs. And so that is what I now do. I spend my days learning little bits about lots of different things and then sharing that with other people. So just really quick, I do want to plug one more time that we're going to be doing these SciComm chats every morning at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So make sure you tune in every day if you can, because we're all stuck doing whatever it is that we do all day at home. So may as well try. And let's go to my presentation. So this is my presentation. This is me there. I'm on the left. I'm not that. I'm on the left. I'm that guy. So I am Trace Dominguez, and I make internet and television. At least that's how I look at it. I make internet and TV. And so that means that I spend my days creating little videos or animations. I make live events. I do podcasts where I end up talking to people without ever seeing them and without them ever seeing me. And it's all about excitement and about nerdery and just enjoying what it is that the world has to offer. Because as it turns out, the world's a pretty cool, complicated place. So at this point, I helped start Seeker, which is a YouTube channel you can find, as well as there's a Facebook page as well, and an Instagram. I started that in 2012 with a few other people, and now I work for myself making Una Dos of Trace, which is kind of the same thing. I just make science videos and entertaining educational stuff. And I worked for the Discovery and Science channels for a long time too. But really the job title that I have is a science communicator, which is not my most exciting term, really. Science communicator means somebody who talks about science and relates it to the everyday person. But I like to think of it as somebody who's enthusiastic, who's curious, and who is creative. Those are the three most important things of any science communicator. Because if you are not enthusiastic, but you're curious and creative, you might never actually get to work. If you are enthusiastic and creative, but you have no curiosity, you're going to end up just kind of going into yourself, right? So each of these three pillars, I think, are really important: enthusiasm, curiosity, and creativity. And I have a little video that I put together that I share with people about what being a science communicator means, or at least what I've been able to do while being one. So enjoy. White House. Woo. This is day 2 of our convention coverage. After the Big Bang, the universe should have created the matter and antimatter. I was not good at that. Science, bro. You'd like to be, I guess. Oh my God. She was really nice. She offered me some of her gummy bears. So I'm an online nerd. And as you saw in that video, that means I get to do a lot of cool stuff. I got to fly in an F-18. That was crazy. I threw up all over the place. Well, not all over the place. They gave you a vomit bag. Like Emily was saying yesterday, they give you a little bag that you can vomit in. And I did. And then I stuck it into the flight suit. They let me keep the flight suit, though. I don't know if those are related at all. But I get to do a lot of different things. Some of them are really exciting. But some of them are just sitting behind a desk and editing video for hours and hours. So what you see on the video side of things is only the best parts of this work. I have to figure out how to make that video that I just showed you. I had to make that, and I had to figure out all of those clips came from different videos. So I had to find all the videos and I had to get all the little clips. I had to coordinate with people sometimes to get those stories and to be able to go to those places. You have to book hotels and find out where to eat. And, you know, being a nerd in the world is kind of complicated. I now have an accountant. This is sort of a detour, but, you know, that's part of this work just as much as flying in airplanes and figuring out a cool science story. So I am an online nerd. I do all sorts of nerdy online things, and I talk about science and engineering, technology, history, psychology every day. So I've been a nerd my whole life. This is me at space camp. This is me in Boy Scouts in Colorado. And at the time, I didn't really know I was a big nerd. I just thought it was stuff that I liked. I took classes at college level when I was in 8th grade, not because I was smarter, but because my dad was in the class and he brought me with him. So I learned all this stuff too. And, you know, nerds are, I think, way cooler now than they were when I was a kid, which I love because everyone can be a nerd. I mean, and this is what I used to tell my brother. People who know the name of every person on a sports team and what school they went to and their stats, that is a nerd, my friends. That's a really big nerd. But that nerd is a different kind of cultural acceptance than the kind of nerd that I was. People who can name all the dinosaurs, they're nerds about paleontology, and people who can build skyscrapers, they're nerds about engineering and math, and people who can run companies are nerds about the stock market and finance and accounting. You know, everyone can be a nerd, and there are so many different kinds of nerds. And this is where I come to the place that I was kind of alluding to earlier. It doesn't have to be a single path to get to this job. This is a list of all the jobs that I had before the job that I do now. I worked in colleges, I worked in stores, I worked in restaurants, I was a dishwasher at a bar, at a hockey rink. Like, I did so many different things to get to where I am now. And all of these things taught me a few different things about life, I guess, for me. And that was mainly how to say, I don't know. That is kind of the overarching theme of my life, is I don't know things. I would like to learn them. So I did all these jobs to learn what I didn't like about these jobs. I also learned a lot about what I did like, but then I was like, oh, well, I don't really love dishwashing. So I maybe don't want to do that as my career. But I also learned, I didn't necessarily want to work in a university all the time. I didn't necessarily want to be on my feet all day. Depending on what it is that you like, you have to try in order to know. So this is my nerdiest job. I'm playing the fife. I had to learn how to play the fife. I didn't know how to do that because I'm not just a science nerd. I'm just a nerd. I'm a nerd about everything. Anything that you can, you're like, ask anyone who knows me and they're like, oh yeah, I learned this cool thing this week. And I'm like, tell me everything. I want to know all about it because I'm just a curious person. And that video was from Fort Mackinac, which is in northern Michigan. I had to learn about blacksmithing. I had to learn about 1770s British social customs and 1830s home life. I had to learn to fire a cannon. I had to learn to fire rifles. I had to learn to play the fife. I had a lot of downtime even after learning all of this because you're spending all day wearing that costume and telling people about the history of this place. And I'd never had a job like this before, but it really spoke to me. I loved it so much because it was cool to learn new things. And I surrounded myself with all of these people who knew a lot more than I did. And that was the best part. That's something that I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with is like asking for help and asking people questions and saying, I don't know. But people who would teach history, like professors, would come in and try and like talk to me about the history of this place. And I'm like, please tell me everything because I don't know anything about it. You are an expert in it. And that has kind of influenced everything I've done since. You can sort of see that in all the videos that I do. I don't know, please tell me. Oh, I mentioned cannon. So this is it. I had to fire that hundreds of times. I got really good at it. You want to see it again? I'll show you again. Hang on. That's awesome. That's really awesome. So I also learned how to play all these different musics and all these different musical instruments. You can see me on the right there holding the rifles that we would have to fire. And again, I surrounded myself with people who are a lot better at this than I am. The guy in the middle is a professional musician. The woman on the right is a professional historical interpreter. She plays the fife or plays the fiddle as her job. It's fascinating. And I'd never met anybody like any of these people. But while I was working at this museum, I learned to love saying, I don't know. I learned to love saying, please teach me more about this. And that has, like I said, influenced everything that I've done since. This was a live video that we did where it was on Pi Day. So just recently, March 14th. And I wrote the first 5,000 digits of pi on a wall in our office, just an empty wall. So that's the first 5,000 digits. There are a few mistakes we had to fix, but we just did this live. Why? Because we thought maybe people would be interested. We didn't know. We tried it. Some people were super excited about it, but you have to try before you can fail. Like you have to know whether it's going to work. I mean, if you know if it's going to work, you're not really trying. You got to try stuff that you don't understand. So I used this I don't know mentality to talk to astronauts and physicists and historians and video producers and chemists and politicians and people who are literally growing organs in labs. And I said, tell me how to do this. I don't know anything about it. Why do you do it? What is it that gets you excited about it? And why do you like doing that? Like, why? I don't know. And that was just my favorite part. So you might be thinking, after listening to Emily yesterday and now me today, and I'm flying in airplanes and firing cannons, so you might be thinking, I want to do that. And you can, you totally can. What I do is essentially I write videos, I produce them, but I'm also the editor. I'm also, doing, like I said, booking hotel rooms and travel. And it's not just talking at a camera and winging it. It's making whole plans and figuring things out. It's being curious about stuff beyond just the surface level and digging into them and doing more research. And again, being comfortable with being wrong and saying like, I didn't know that. And now I know those things. That's a big part of it too. So kind of to wrap it up, start with I don't know. That's the first thing about how to do this. I don't know things. Please teach me, person who knows things. This guy here in this picture works at the Center for European Nuclear Research. He's a physicist. I asked him, is smashing particles together sort of like smashing cars together? And he's like, nah, not really. And then ended up talking for 20 minutes, and it was fascinating. But I started with a question. I don't know this. Is this right? And he said, no, let me tell you what is right. And it was way more fun that way. Then listen to the people who do know the things. Say, I don't know. Listen to the people who do know and write it down. Take notes. Then tell a story about what you learned from the person who knows. That's really it. That's my whole job. Like in 3 bullet points, that's my whole job. I don't know this. Do you know this? Oh, tell me about it. Hey guys, I learned this thing from this person who knows things. And again, there are lots of other jobs in this world than the ones that maybe you're thinking, oh, well, I want to go into video, so I have to be the guy on camera. You don't have to be. You can be the guy who makes the camera work really good. You can be the guy who makes sure that the guy on the camera sounds really good. You can be the person who just does the legal stuff for the people that make videos. There are 1,000 jobs in science communication, and not all of them are learning about science and talking about it. That's just the thing that I really like. I know people who totally nerd out in making spreadsheets that look like calendars so they can figure out exactly where people need to be at specific times and then send all those emails to everyone. That's somebody's job. They love it. That could be you. Maybe that's you. I don't know. So the main thing is to get out there and go try. Go make something. Go do something. This was right after we launched a hot air balloon with a 360-degree camera on it. And we got it to the stratosphere, which is above 98% of the atmosphere. And no one had ever done this before, ever. No one had ever launched a 360 camera in this way on a weather balloon. And we were so excited because we tried it and we could have failed. You can see it in the field back there. We didn't, as it turned out. But at this point, when we took this picture, we did not know if we had failed or not. We had not seen the video. So this could have all been a failure, but hey, look how excited we are that we tried, because that's the important thing. So that's it. That's my presentation.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Trace. That was an awesome tour of a little bit of what you get to do. And we've had people on our YouTube channel saying how nice a message it is to say that it's so nice to see someone who is keen to say, I don't know. You know, so many people go into these things and they want to feel that they can convey everything perfectly the first time, and we're all ignorant together. That's half the fun. So for anyone tuning in on YouTube, if you guys want to type in questions in the chat bar, please do. I'll take as many as I can and pass them along to Trace, who is nodding enthusiastically ready for this. We're going to start with Emily. So you kept talking about her. She decided to tune in on the YouTube video. So her first question to you is, what is your favorite story you've ever covered?
Oh man, Emily, that is tough. So when I worked for the YouTube channel, I wrote about 1,000 videos. Over about 6 years. And so the ones that stand out are things that were actual questions that I had. So this doesn't really answer your question. I think the best video that I ever made might be about antimatter. And I showed it a really brief clip of it in my video earlier. Antimatter, for people that don't know, matter is like everything around us. Like that's matter. It's hard. You can feel it. Antimatter is the same stuff, but it's backwards. Instead of a proton and electron being positive and negative, it's the flip. See how complicated this is? I'm just trying to explain right now. That's why I love that video so much, because it took me so long. Actually, I ran it by Emily, funnily enough. That's really funny. And she was like, this is complicated. You need to figure this out better, which is great feedback, because I was like, I don't know. You're an engineer. Maybe you know. But that one might be my favorite. But I love things like, why do we have earwax? That was a great question that we started a video with, and it was really fun. Those are the kind of videos that really stick out to me, because they really they fix themselves in my mind, because I think about them all the time.
We'll have to ask later why I have so much earwax, but we can discuss that when we're not live anymore. All right, Alexis wants to know, do you have a least favorite story? Is there something that's gone terribly wrong, either terrible topic or went so wrong that it just total crapshoot?
Yes, we once tried to make a sketch, like a video sketch, where we had a bunch of science communicators and we were all trying to like act, and we were doing a whole skit about coffee versus tea. It went bad. It was bad. It was bad. It never aired. I'm sure it exists somewhere, but like on a server somewhere, hopefully covered in cobwebs. But yeah, there are things that fail all the time. I've made a lot of different videos or recorded a lot of things that have never seen the light of day, because maybe they weren't quite ready. Maybe they weren't done. The important thing from a video perspective is to hang on to the video that you've shot, because you might use it for something else. So like I have a bunch of video of trash on the beach in Miami because I think ocean trash is a terrible problem that we all have to live with and is only going to get worse if we do nothing about it. But I haven't quite figured out how to best tell that story in a way that hasn't already been told. So I just have all this video of trash on a beach in Miami, which is taking up space somewhere.
Well, just a quick note for anyone tuning in. We did an entire month last September on ocean plastics with amazing researchers from around the world. So if you want to check out some really cool stuff, check back to our September episodes.
Yay!
I'm compelled to ask, as this footage might be burned or under cobwebs, coffee or tea, Trace? What did you pick?
I'm drinking coffee right now, but I like tea in the afternoon.
Yeah, I think coffee's good sometimes. Tea is good at all times. So that's where I'll stick with.
That's true.
All right. So in your list of jobs, you listed a few of them. You picked out a few of them, and you didn't pick blacksmith. When were you a blacksmith? What's going on with this? Explain.
That was related to this time I was working at the historic site. So when I first started there, I was what they would call my whole time there, I was a historic interpreter. I was taking history and interpreting it for the modern day. That's a very important, I think, distinction. For example, at Ford Theater in Washington, D.C., they tell the joke that everyone was laughing and laughing, and the laughter covered up the gunshot that killed President Lincoln because of this joke. So they tell the joke, it's not funny, because history, those people are different than us. They don't know our humor. We don't know their humor. So I spent this years learning all of this stuff, and you have to learn it in increments. So at first, I just learned one job. I learned how to fire a 4570, 1873 4570 Springfield, a rifle. And then after 2 or 3 years, I learned how to play the fife and the bugle and the drum, and learned more about the cannon, and learned more tours and more about the American fur trade. And eventually, I wanted to learn about blacksmithing. So I took my one day off a week, and I would go to the blacksmith shop and learn how to do that. And then a couple years after that, they said, you're pretty good at this. You can run the blacksmith shop if you want. And so at least one day a week, I was in there talking to people about blacksmithing and showing people how to make stuff. So that was a whole other job that I had at that same place. But it was just because I didn't know how to do some stuff and I wanted to learn more.
Very cool. Did you grow a beard when you were a blacksmith? I hope so.
I had a goatee for a while, but then it wasn't 100% historically accurate. They were more common during the Civil War, and I was portraying the 1880s and 90s, so I ended up.
Thank you for clarifying. All right, so I know I want to be you when I grow up, and I think that this kid does too. We've got Hudson, who's 8 in Ottawa, and he wants to know, have you ever done a science experiment or video with a Ferrari?
Whoa. One, Hudson, I would love to. If you've got one, call me, because if you're okay with me borrowing it for a day or two. But I have not done anything with fast cars yet. I would like to. That would be really cool. I would have to figure out what kind of cool story we would want to tell. Something that I was reading about recently is, when airplanes land, the wheels aren't spinning, and they hit the ground, and you hear that as they catch and start to spin. That actually wears off some of the rubber on the wheels. And it's fine because the other part of the wheel then turns over because it's heavier. So these are things that I keep in my head, and I'm like, oh, can I tell a story about this later? So that's airplane story, not a car story. But I would love to learn more about how they make cars so light and still so strong, like with carbon fiber. So like I said, Hudson, if you got a Ferrari, hit me up. Okay,
we'll make that happen. If I get a cool email, I'm going to pass along. We're going to make that happen. I'm excited. I love this question. I've never seen this question in any of our thousands of sessions. So from Kaylie, do you think there's an increasing pressure for scientists to become science communicators, and how important do you think communication skills are for those interested in science-based roles?
Kaylie, that is an awesome question. I do think that there is pressure for scientists to be better communicators. I think it might be a little too far to say become science communicators in my mind, only because I think they're different jobs. I think scientists should be able to talk about their science, because if you can't tell anybody about it, then what are you doing? Like, if all you do is write a paper and no one can read that paper but like 1% of the populace, that might be important. That might still be valuable. Would it be more valuable if 10% of the people could read it? Absolutely. But if 100% of the people can read it, you might be diluting your point, right? So there's probably a line. It's a little technical, little inside baseball. Love it. But I think, yes, there's definitely more pressure. I think good communication skills are really important. Another SciCommer named Alex and I did a class at Caltech about the kind of teaching scientists a little bit more about science communication, how to make videos. It was really fun. And the lovely part about that is scientists who are in that class, they want to be better communicators. And I think that's the pressure that you are seeing a lot more come to fruition today, especially in younger scientists, because people want to talk about their science. And that's awesome. I think there's always going to be a role for professional science communicators too, though. Somebody who can speak lots of different science or speak really well to an audience.
Fantastic, Trace. From your Twitter page, I know that you love librarians like I do. And so I want to highlight, you talked about all these ways to get involved with things and get inspired to be curious. Are there any books that jump out to you that we can share with kids at home that would inspire them to learn about any topic you can think of? Any books that jump out?
I mean, I used to literally read the encyclopedia because we had one and I was bored, and there was no internet when I was a kid. I know, it was the worst. So there's no Wikipedia. So I had to like go read the World Book Encyclopedia. I think that's actually a really fun thing to do, because you're going to find things in there about everything, which is very me, right? If you're super into space, go find a space book. There are lots of really amazing books about the universe and the cosmos. That's great. I think the problem with recommending one book is I think everyone loves different things. I really enjoyed it was like How Things Work. It was a book, like literally an animated kind of hand-drawn book about how things work. I really liked that as a kid because I always wanted to take stuff apart, but I wasn't always great at putting it back together. So it was helpful for me. But kind of figure out what it is that you're excited about. There's definitely a book at your local library to help you out. And most local libraries, because we're all socially isolated right now, we're social distancing, most of them have apps. So if you have a library card already, go on Hoopla or Overdrive or Libby, get books at your local library right on your tablet, your phone, your e-reader, your PC, your Mac, whatever it is that you use, you can find those books. Even the Apple TV has stuff, because some of the library has movies and things you can watch. It's amazing. Love the public library.
Fantastic. Again, for kids, it's such a great message to share that there's so many ways of getting these resources. I mean, we used to walk uphill both ways in the snow to get to school. And I mean, now if you're a kid, everything's out there in the machine in your pocket. So, all right. I'm going to say this properly because I keep wanting to say naked astronomy, which is totally wrong. Naked eye astronomy. So since you cover this as a topic, is there anything that we can share with kids at home? Like what might they not know is out there that you can direct them to go check out tonight?
Oh man, let me open up my Starry Night app and we'll see. Can I share my screen again?
No. Yes, of course you can. Come on.
Okay, hang on. Right, let's see.
Just this once though.
And then Starry Night. Tonight, Mercury is at its western elongation. This is before dawn. So you'd have to get up really early at about 6:30 in the morning if you're in your local time zone, which right now it's set to looks like Central Time. Also, you have Venus is visible in the sky. Let's see, we're at 11 a.m. right now. So let's change it to 6 a.m. and see what we got. This is a kind of boring sky. Well, there's the sun, big star, easy to find.
Yeah. So actually, you mentioned Venus, and so I want to cover this because I actually don't know this. If I go out and I see a planet, and I'm pretty sure it's a planet because it's much bigger than a star and it looks different, maybe it's got a reddish hue, how can I tell Mars versus Venus? Is there an easy way to tell?
Mars is red.
Okay.
So it actually shows up in the sky as more red color as well, which is super cool and really easy to spot sometimes. So it looks like in this time zone that I'm set in right now, Venus doesn't rise until 7:15 a.m. So what we do is we can 100 and then go forward, and there goes There goes time. So time is moving. So if you look here, you can see Jupiter's here, Saturn is here, and Mercury is here. You can see a lot of planets right now in the sky, so I highly recommend you go outside. You don't have to necessarily do it in the morning. So you can see the sun's coming up, so now you wouldn't be able to see any of these at this point. But, whoops, you should be able to see lots of different planets right now. So I highly recommend that. Essentially, planets are way brighter than the stars that are further away. Even the brightest star is not as bright as a planet like Venus or Mars, usually. I mean, it depends on where you are and light pollution, a variety of other things. But you should be able to see planets if they are in the sky. So right now, Mercury is at its elongation point, which means it's the furthest from the sun. Because Mercury orbits so close to our sun, it's usually either right before or right after the sun comes over the horizon that you're going to see it. Jupiter and Saturn, see how much further away they are? That's because they have different orbits, right? They're further out in the solar system. But anyway, I just wrote an episode for Stargazers that's going to come out later this summer that how you can find planets in the sky. So This is a great question for me. But essentially, look for something that's really bright. It's probably a planet. If it seems out of place and is super bright and it's not blinking, then it's not an airplane or something like that.
Fantastic. All right, we're going to take a couple more questions. I want to note too, because I just discovered this last year, you can watch the International Space Station go over. So there are apps to find out how to do this and when it's going to come. But it is mind-blowing to see this super, super bright space station go right over a couple minutes. It's awesome.
Oh my God, it's amazing. I saw that once and it changed my world. It was so
You
cool.
would have seen Saturn's rings at one point too. So a lot of us might have heard of Saturn's rings. You might have seen them in pictures, but to actually see it through a telescope is one of the most incredible experiences you can do. It's like, it's surreal almost. Anyway, Tom wants to know, and this is a question I love and it fits in with your message. What sort of courses would you recommend students to take at high school, post-secondary levels to be strong candidates for a position like yours? And I want to add to this, do people need fantastic grades to get positions like yours?
Great questions. Take a variety of different classes. Definitely take maths and science. If you are interested in math and science, that's going to make it easier for you to be a science communicator. But I have a psychology background and a communication background. My psychology degree is a bachelor's of science, but that happened to be because of where I went to school. So I think that is important. I think in terms of stuff to get this job, like I said, I did so many different things. So I think the main qualification was I was willing to do it. My boss was like, we need somebody to make video. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. And she's like, well, it's your job. So you're gonna have to figure it out. And I did. So I was kind of in the right place at the right time. If you want a job as a science communicator, the main thing to do, and this comes back to Kaylie's question earlier, is maybe to study some science and find the science that you really like so that you can then go on to talk about it. So again, kind of coming back to Kaylie's point, a lot of scientists are becoming science communicators because they realize they're very impassioned about this topic and it makes it easy for them to talk about it. But if you want to be a general science communicator like me, someone without a science background, take lots of different courses because you'll find things that you pick out that really get your heart racing.
Fantastic. We come to this so much and with so many people is this idea of find something that you're really passionate about, do that. And if you get some video training in there, all the better. You trial by fire. Trace,
yeah, absolutely.
This has been great. Before we wrap up, man, is there anything else you want to share with kids at home about how they can get involved, excited, learn about the stuff that you're doing and more?
I think the main thing to do is if you're interested in talking about science, if you're interested in talking about technology, engineering, art, sociology, like we didn't mention art, but creating videos is an art form. So make sure that you learn about art as well and design and, learn about lots of different things. Follow the creative threads that you realize when you tug on them, they mean something to you. Follow those threads because you're going to find little things at the end of each one that's going to make you happy. I didn't know I loved design. I started listening to a podcast called 99% Invisible that they talk about design in the world all the time. I met some people when I was growing up that were all designers and realized I really love it. Didn't know that, never studied it. I don't, have a background in it, but now I make all my own graphics and I get to it's just fun. It's fun. And that's, I think, something else is that remember to have fun with it. Sometimes we can all take ourselves too seriously. It's okay if you don't.
Fantastic. Trace, what an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for continuing our awesome SciComm Storytime series, and we really appreciate you being here today.
Thanks very much. It was so awesome.
Thank you, guys. For everyone on YouTube, do check us out more. We got a newsletter out. It's in our YouTube chat bar in the bottom, so you can check out all our sessions coming up, and we hope you guys can join us for more SciComm Storytimes. For now, have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye for now, everyone. Bye, Trace.